everyone, and welcome back. I'm Kylie Montigney as your host, and today we are welcoming Jeannine Luby, who is a stand-up comedian and podcaster for Funny Wine Girl Jeannine and owner of Laugh to Live, actually. And welcome to Northeast PA, Jeannine. We're super excited to have you on today.
Thanks so much. I love what you're doing, by the way. I just think this is awesome. So thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. And like I know you've been doing Funny Wine Go Jeannine for a while now, but if people are not like kind of familiar or just starting to kind of get into it, like tell us more about that. Like how would you kind of describe it?
Yeah, so Funny Wine Girl is kind of like a moniker, I guess. It's like my name for stand-up comedy. I came up with it a little over 2 years ago, actually right before, I guess during or in the midst of the pandemic. It's so hard to tell time frames these days, but I always liked wine and I've been doing stand-up comedy and improv comedy throughout the years, over 20 years. And I got to a point where I wanted to produce my own shows and have them. I like to empower women as much as possible and promote women.
Mhm.
So I got to a point where I wanted to run my own shows, produce them, and have female comedians and have it for a female audience. And I focused on places that women like. So wineries, different places like that. And I was doing that for a while. And then just these past few years, I decided to brand it more or less with Funny Wine Girl. And then that kind of led me to creating my podcast, Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl, about, gosh, it was 2 years ago this May since I've been doing that.
Ooh, that's amazing. Like was like empowering women like your mission when you started like your podcast? Because I know for me, like my mission is really for this show and my other podcast and organization is to really empower women. So like I'm kind of curious to see like how kind of that mission kind of started.
Yeah, so honestly, I had been doing comedy and I like wine, and I kind of like got this idea that maybe the podcast would be related to wine or wine themed. And I got the name Uncorked, but I liked the name, or I wanted the name to mean not just about wine, but opening up, meaning uncorking and revealing things from ourselves. And the more I thought about it, I wanted it to be women because I'm
Mm-hmm.
someone who's been involved in the community for a long time doing things, for women, with women, and I just think we need to do more of that. So I thought, you know what? Most of my guests, I've had males on occasionally, and I joke that they're the token males, no disrespect, but I like to have a different woman on each week, and not just Northeast PA, but people from, across the state, in Pittsburgh, upstate New York, New York City, wherever I meet people, or if I run into them through comedy, online, through Facebook, whatever, I like to have them on every week. And the thing is, it's funny, we're not so much talking about wine. Occasionally we'll mention like what we like to drink, but really it's not about wine. And so maybe that's my bad for naming it that, but I still really believe in the idea of promoting women and just having them share. So that idea of uncorking some stories that they want to share.
Oh, definitely. I know like when people hear the name, they think like it's probably all based on wine, probably. Is that like you probably get that all the time. They're like, oh, I thought this was a podcast about wine when they hear it. Which is
Yeah.
like I mean, a show doesn't like even if it's in his name, a show doesn't have to be about wine. Of course it can pick up occasionally, but sometimes it's like you can bring up different conversations maybe about wine, but not like I don't know how to describe it, but it doesn't have to be this like the top tier type of mission.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, there are, like I said, sometimes I'll talk about wine, but I feel like, so my background, my degree is in journalism and I have a master's in communication. So I've always felt comfortable talking with people,
Mhm.
interviewing them. Although I don't like to consider my podcasts interviews, I call them conversations
Mhm.
because I like to go in with an idea in my head of what I want to talk about and certain highlights. But I like it to just kind of unwind or uncork as we're talking, and
Mhm.
as get the listeners get to know more about my guest as I'm getting to know it as well at the same time. And it's turned out to be a lot of very serious topics, and it's funny because some of the episodes it's me being silly and laughing and being funny with different guests, but
Mhm.
they're more serious ones than funny, actually. So I don't know, I might be losing people who like that, but then I've been told by other people they rather like silly. They don't want I had one girl tell me, I don't want to have to think too much. So she's like, I don't want to have to think too much. So if your podcast is too serious, I don't think I want to listen to it. But I'm not worried about that because you can't be everything for everybody.
Yeah, that's for sure. But it's like I know with a lot of people, like they would rather maybe like the funny side rather than the serious side. Whatever you talk about, like important topics like empowering women or like different things are happening in the community from being raised and living here in Northeast PA, is that like when you would bring up these topics, people would rather like your goofy side, the funny side, than much serious side. Because like when you like hear someone being jokingly funny and all these things, like it just like makes people want to make jokes like that. And so like when they hear the serious part, they're like, what is going on? Like, why is this being so serious? But then like for me personally, I'd rather both in this one for some reason. Like it's just like I'd rather be serious at one point than be funny the next. So it is like I'm like in the middle, but I know for everyone it's much different. Like they prefer like one or the other.
Yeah, well, and I think that's unfortunately kind of indicative of what goes on in our society these days, and you see it on like social media. We have
Mhm.
extremes, and people forget like those are the loudest voices, but I hope that people don't forget that there's more moderation than there is extremism. So it's just that they're the loudest voices. But you're right. People like, and I understand people want to laugh, which is great. I mean, I do that through my business. I promote laughter, laugh to live. So people want to laugh. Sometimes people have so much seriousness in their own lives they don't want to hear about serious topics. So I get that, but at the same time, we need to be talking about things like, this week's episode on my podcast coming out is about a woman who lost her father to suicide because of mental illness. And these are topics we need to talk about to remove stigma so that people feel safe and that they get the help that they need. So there's a place for everything. Hopefully people will just give it a chance and listen every now and again to the serious message because we do need to be informed and to learn to understand about what other people are going through.
Yeah, that's definite because like when we covered those topics, like whether it's like mental health leading to suicide or like the impact of COVID-19 over the last few years on like how it impacted us or just some topics like that that we've been through. And like when we talk about these topics, it does end the stigma for that topic, but also can help other people that are going through the same things. Like when I discuss these topics on my other podcast with people, whether it's like professionals or talk about their experiences or not. But like when we talk about these topics, it's oftentimes very emotional for them, but also very emotional for me. Because like when I talk about mental health, I'm the type of person that grew up with anxiety and depression. And so like when I talk about this, I know I'm probably speaking for a lot of people when I say like mental health is was well hard for me to talk about years ago, but I'm perfectly fine talking about now. But it also is very hard to talk about, even though I'm fine with talking about it.
Yeah.
Well, it's like when we talk about these discussions, it does, of course, it's very hard to talk about, but it's also very important to talk about to get your emotions out there and to connect with other people that are going through the exact same thing.
Absolutely. And it's a lot like, and I'll pull in a little bit about my background with stand-up humor. And I share this a lot, just like humor can be empowering and so can talking about things can be empowering because oftentimes we're afraid to talk about things because we're afraid to be judged or not accepted
Mhm.
or we're just uncomfortable because it's not something that's making us feel good, right? So but if
Mhm.
we talk about them, we kind of then we have power and we
Mhm.
whether it's the illness or whatever doesn't have power over us. And that's what stand-up comedy and humor can do for people because a lot of comedians are actually quite serious people.
Mhm.
They're
Yeah.
not goofy people. They're serious people who've had, I mean, some famous comedians, they've been through sexual abuse, they've had
Mhm.
alcoholic parents, and the way that they can empower themselves and release some of the pain is through their stand-up comedy.
Yeah, because I know like a lot of comedians was to say maybe like Kevin Hart or Adam Sandler. I don't know if Adam Sandler is more of a comedian or is this an actor. But it's like when you go through like those comedians, like let's just say Kevin Hart, for example, like he's a famous actor. A lot of people know him from his acting work. And I know like what like a lot of like comedians do like to like bring up these past experience they've been through, whether it's like sexual abuse or entertainment business, which I know entertainment business is very hectic. And it's like when they bring up those things, they like to joke about it, but then inside you're like, well, that's kind of not a joke to me, but it is to other people.
Yeah, yeah, and what's funny is it's a very interesting, before we talked about extremism, it's a very interesting time when people say you can't say that, and it's not a matter of really what someone else should decide what you should talk about, especially as comedians. I mean, the idea of someone being a comedian is they're trying to create laughter, right? And some of the topics, if people understand what satire is, they're trying to raise your awareness while making you laugh. So some people could be offended by a joke or not like it, but that's okay. You can just not see that person again or listen to their stand up. You don't have to condemn them or say they can't talk about it. I mean, for me, I'm getting older. I'm talking about my health. My parents are getting older, and we're talking about preparing wills and doing all kinds of serious things. But I make a joke about it because we went to get their wills done and then we went for ice cream. And it's like there's something kind of like ironic about that. But that's what I'm going through, where I'm at in my life. And some people might not appreciate it if they just lost a parent or whatever, but
Yeah.
maybe if they hadn't, they might laugh. So we
Yeah.
really have to kind of say, when we're going to see a comedian, kind of think about, they don't know you sitting in the audience. They don't know your specific problems. So, if you don't like the joke, that's okay. But everyone uses comedy and humor for what they're going through. And a lot of times it is relatable.
And I know with like your podcast, you like oftentimes say like people shouldn't laugh and drink wine at the same time. I know like once I saw it, I was like, "What? Are you serious?" But like, why is that? Like, why shouldn't people like laugh and drink wine at the same time?
I think I put that out there as, again, as kind of like a humor, as kind of a joke. When I promote my ladies comedy nights, and I might even mention it in the podcast too, only for the sake of, I don't want anyone choking. So it's really kind of meant as, not serious advice. I mean, a lot of the shows I do are with women in wineries, and if they're drinking their wine and they start to laugh, I just don't want them to choke. So that's it. Like,
Makes
just
sense.
be safe, drink your wine, and then once you've swallowed it, then you can laugh.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Once I saw it, I'm like, okay, like that's hilarious, but I'm also very curious to see why we can't drink and wine and laugh at the same time. Because I like trust me, with drinking water and laughing at the same time, like that's not fun. But like what topics like do you kind of typically cover or discuss on the show? I know you said you cover mental health, but do you like cover anything like comedy? Like what do you kind of typically discuss during the episodes?
Yeah, so there was a time when I was trying to do different themes based on what was going on that month, but that can be challenging. So it depends on if I meet someone new and I like what they're doing, if they're interesting. Like, one of my friends is a romance author, and she writes romance, and I actually proofread and edit her book. So I've had her on talking about her romance novel and how she traveled to Italy and England for writers retreats and workshops. And I've had women on who are training for marathons. I've had other entrepreneurs on and talking about how they got their business through the pandemic, how they got it through COVID, because it was a really challenging time. So really, it runs the gamut. I have had many fellow comedians on, women that I've had on, and it turns out, we talk about the comedy, but like, again, one of my recent episodes was a woman that I met through comedy. She's a great person, and she shared too about her bipolar disorder. So we talk about, and how she's helping take care of an elderly mother. All of that, you kind of have to laugh or you cry sometimes, so kind of thing. So we talk about that. But there's absolutely lighthearted topics. Last week we talked about kind of more serious, but self-defense for especially young women going back to college. That's an important topic. But coming up in a few weeks, I'm interviewing someone who does standardized patient work. That's something I do at the local medical college. So we pretend to be patients. We get paid to do that while students learn from us. So that one, I think people will find it interesting, but it's also, it allows a lot of opportunities for laughs too, because there's been a lot of humorous things that have happened with the medical students throughout the years.
Yeah, there has to be a million of them. Like I definitely need to listen to that episode once it's released. But like first of all, with comedy, like how did you kind of find your passion or kind of get into comedy? Like when did you kind of realize that you want to pursue kind of a career, well, not necessarily a career field, but like do comedy in general?
Yeah, because I won't ever try and tell anybody that it's a career. I mean, you have to work your butt off, which honestly, I'm just doing it more for fun and making a few dollars. But when
Mm,
I was younger, I always joke, I don't know if I'm an introverted extrovert or an extroverted introvert, because I was actually an incredibly shy kid. I
mm,
was smart, but I was the kid that wouldn't really want to speak up. I never made noise in class. I was the one that the nuns would have sit in front of the class to watch to make sure no one misbehaved, because I was the one who was like Miss Goody Two Shoes. And I was very shy, but I used to like to write. So that's when I thought, wow, I'd love to do something with comedy someday or something funny. I went to Penn State. I had never really been involved in too many extracurricular activities other than the school newspaper. And when I got home, I came back home to Scranton because I do love living here. I saw an
mm.
improv group, On the Spot Improv, and it's been many years, over 20 years, so they're no longer active. But I saw them and I thought, well, it's not stand-up comedy, but it's still a pathway that I can use. I did improv for several years, and then I finally tried stand up. My friend lived in Houston, so I tried stand up comedy and open mic night out there because I thought if I stink, if nobody laughs, nobody has to know in Scranton or Northeast PA. But it turned out it went really well. I came home and I've been doing it on and off ever since, and it's just a great outlet to express yourself, and just deal with, as Judy Carter, who's another comedian who wrote a book, she talks about our pain points. Those things that cause us pain and frustration in life are there's a gold mine there for us to write comedy from, because again,
Mhm.
it can be serious, can cause us pain, but what are we going to do? Are we going to cry about it? Are we going to curse all day about it? We have to find a way to make light of it so that we have power over it. So comedy for me, it's a great outlet, and sometimes you can even get a message across. I love when I am performing, talking about aging as a woman. I'm about to turn 52 next weekend.
Ooh,
Women at a certain age, they don't want to, like, for years it's been like you don't talk about women aging, and that's got to change, because
mhm.
you can't just become, oh, you're obsolete after 35 or 40. It's like you
Yeah.
can't do that. So I kind of use it also as a platform to educate, or to kind of advocate for women.
Yeah, that's seriously awesome because like I know like a lot of people in terms of entertainment wise, like wasn't saying like women entertainment. Like if they're like I know like I heard a bunch of stories, whether it's from a podcast or like reading through Google, like news outlets, that like people, especially women over 40, don't get as much movie roles or like in roles in general after they turn 40 because of how old they are, which is absolutely insane. And like when you speak up about those topics, whether it's like not getting as much roles after you turn 40, for example, like when you talk about that like specific problem, it helps kind of bring more awareness to be like, oh, like I'm probably 45 years old and I have only gotten like 3 roles in the last like 3 years since I turned 40. So it's like it does bring a lot of stigma for people, especially women that are over 40, because like when you're like used to probably work like every week, getting a bunch of money and getting a bunch of roles, but then after you turn 40 and probably had kids, you didn't get a bunch of roles as much as you used to. So it's like when you get that like problem, it does bring a lot of stigma and it causes a lot of like not money problems, but just like you're not as working as much as you want to like feed your family and do things you want and generally do and stuff like that. And like with especially with going to PSU, like my family's PSU fans, of course, die hard. Especially if you live in Northeast PA, you have to be a PSU fan. So
Yep,
like
that's
with
my alum.
yeah, and so my whole family went to PSU, so it's kind of I kind of have to go there. But it's like with PSU, like PSU is really a great like journalism communications program. Like if anyone's like looking to go into a communications journalism, anything related, go to PSU. That's all I have to say. But do you have like any upcoming like comedy gigs or anything like that?
Yeah, so I would say first I would just give a plug to my Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl podcast is on Spotify and Apple, and they can find it in other places, but please check that out. Every Thursday I release a new episode every Thursday morning. And as far as comedy, October 12th, I will be at the Mountain View Vineyard, and it's a winery in Stroudsburg. It's another ladies' night, and there's two comedians coming up from Philadelphia, 2 other female comedians, and myself. So it's going to be a great night. And then November 9th in Pittston at the LBC Distillery. That's a nice, tiny, I shouldn't say tiny, but it's a nice, intimate, cozy atmosphere. So that one seats about 25. So I would encourage women, if they want to go to that, to check that out. I have the link for that. So it's a nice night to have a cocktail and enjoy some comedians, myself and 2 other comedians as well. So I'm super excited about that. And, I mean, I add things every now and again, but right now, those are the 2 that I've got coming up, October and November.
Oh, perfect. Everyone go check it out. That seems seriously like a fun time. And lastly, before we head out, like how can people kind of like book you or kind of find more information about you and about your work?
Yeah, so they can check out my website, funnywinegirl.com, or they can just follow me on Instagram and Facebook, Funny Wine Girl Jeannine, and just feel free to reach out, message me. I also do laughter yoga, laugh to live. It's for wellness sake, so you can always book me. But as far as ladies' nights of comedy, if you're looking to do something for your organization or for a group of women, maybe you have a business that caters to women, give me a call or an email, and I'd be happy to organize something. It would be a lot of fun.
Perfect. Everyone go check her out. And thank you so much, Jeannine, for coming on and taking the time to come on to chat. I appreciate you so much. Man, I'm sure a lot of us will definitely check you out. I know like your work is absolutely amazing. So I really appreciate you coming on and taking the time. And thank you everyone for listening to this new episode. And I'll catch you guys hopefully sometime soon in a new episode. Thank you so much again, Jeannine.
Thank you so much.